Hey everyone, good afternoon, I guess to most of you, and I guess good evening to anybody on our side of the world. We just wanted to hop on here and try to keep this as short as possible, but it's been quite a while since we've been able to update you with a Facebook Live, and so we just wanted to tell you about a few things going on. One of the main things that we wanted to tell everybody about is just some news with Elin. We know that so many of you have been praying for Elin for so long, and we just have some really big, awesome news to tell you. I know that a lot of you read our newsletter and knew that I went to a women's retreat back in February for NGW Women in Europe. And right before I left, Elin had really just started spiraling downward again. It was getting to where she was having lots of rages again. She was having a really hard time socially at school. It really seemed like any of the progress that we had been making, she was just totally backsliding. And we noticed it more on a spiritual level as well than we had before, where Elin would say things like she didn't want to pray suddenly. She never wanted to pray. She would be saying, things like God doesn't love us and constantly questioning things on a spiritual level. Her behavior was getting really, really bad again. She was starting to like yell and things like she hates us and like we don't love her and all sorts of really crazy things again. And it was really, really getting difficult. At the same time, starting really at the beginning of January, maybe a little bit before, she started having nightly nightmares. And so we were waking up every night with her and having a really hard time going back to sleep, having a really hard time wanting to fall asleep in the first place because she was scared to go to sleep. And so we were really struggling through this time. And of course, we know how things spiral, that as soon as you start losing sleep, then your behavior gets even worse and all of life just feels terrible as everyone in the house is now losing sleep. So it was a really trying time right before we left. And right before I went on women's retreat, Elin had a huge rage and she started talking about how, again, we don't love her. If we loved her, we would never discipline her and things like that. And she was just really, really going crazy. There are times that we've said that she almost kind of looks like like glassy-eyed, like she's not there totally with us anymore. And this was one of those times. And so I've never really done something like this before, but I just started praying over her right there in her room. And she was saying, you don't love me, you don't love me. And I said, I rebuke that lie in the name of Jesus, and started praying just very fervently that God would help her to really know and feel our love for her. And she totally just went quiet and limp and still and just fell asleep in my lap, just very quickly like that. So I went to the retreat the next day and I was able to have prayer time and speak with a lot of the veteran missionaries and just tell them that, I have been struggling with a lot of the anger, especially with trying to parent and know how to parent well this whole situation. And I also feel like there was a big part of it that Elin was manipulating the situation and was not entirely honest. So it was just a really hard time. And I started telling all the missionaries, the more veteran women missionaries, about just the whole progress of our lives since having come here. Hey Anna, good to have you on here. But so just um, the entire journey that we've seen Elin go through over the past 2 years. And the first thing that the lady said was, this sounds like real spiritual warfare, spiritual oppression on Elin that she's been struggling with for a long time. And that just kind of lifted such a weight for me because we had been kind of thinking about this anyway. As Christians, we definitely believe in spiritual warfare. We know that we are not fighting against flesh and blood, but I think that being raised in the West, we don't really truly take it seriously. And so it's kind of one of those like intellectual, yes, I will assent to the fact that this happens, but I don't really,
Happens to other people.
yeah, it happens to others, not us. So anyway, I was just really encouraged coming back from the women's retreat. And the first thing that we did when we got back was I prayed over Elon's room that night and rebuked any presence that may have been there and just claimed Christ's victory that he has promised us just in our household. And then that night I slept with Elon. It was the first night in about 6 weeks that Elon did not have a nightmare, but instead I had a nightmare. And it was very vivid. I can still remember what it looked like. It was very demonic in nature. It was pretty scary. And so then the next night was the first night that Elon was able to tell us what her dreams had been about, because we had asked her multiple times. And she finally told us that she keeps looking for her sword in her dreams, and she can never find her sword. And she said that the dream was that there were these dark monsters always chasing her and trying to eat her, and that she couldn't speak in her dreams, but she was always looking for her sword and she didn't know where to find it. And so this was very eye-opening and scary and heartbreaking for us. And so the very next day was Sunday, and we had never actually taught our children the spiritual armor. And so we taught them that day the spiritual armor, and of course acted it out and went through it, and before bed prayed through the spiritual armor. And since then, we have gone in even after the kids are in bed and before we go to bed, and we laid hands on our children and prayed over them and prayed over the room. And since then, there's only been one night that Elon has had a nightmare, and it happened to be the one night that we fell asleep and forgot to go pray over their room. Since then, there has been a complete 180-degree change. We feel like it's the first time that we've been able to really see Elon's personality that we honestly kind of forgot that she had from before we came to Romania. She has been really sweet. She's been praying again. She has been wanting to talk about God and ask questions. She's been way more obedient.
Well, and for the last year, when we asked, well, Elon, you know that we love you, right?
Mm-hmm.
She would say no.
Right.
And she kind of acted like she was joking, but she would never say yes.
Right. Suddenly she's accepting from us when we hug her and tell her that we love her. And she's way more affectionate toward us, telling us that she loves us. It really, truly was a 180-degree change.
And other people noticed it too. They said, hey, she's looking us in the eyes. She would never look at people in the eyes and talk to them. And she started making friends at school. She never really had that going. Too much.
And suddenly at school, she's just blossomed with her Romanian. She's definitely not fluent, but she was really not making any progress with Romanian. And just in the past 4 or 5 weeks, she suddenly just exploded with language learning as well. So we are very convinced. We've talked about this the entire time we've been here, and like I said, affirmed, at least intellectually, that we think that we've been under spiritual attack. But it really was the first time that we really took action to battle that way. And this is really our first experience that we can truly say we just have seen God really more just work a miracle in our kids' life. If you've been around at all over the past 2 years of our journey so far and known what's going on with Elon, then you'll know for sure that this is just such a huge change for Elon. So anyway, Anna, I see that you recommended Priscilla Shirer's book. I actually have a friend who's reading that one. I have Kay Arthur's book on spiritual warfare that I have been studying for the past several months. So maybe I need to do the Priscilla Shirer one next. But yeah, I definitely feel like God gave me that Bible study book when we were back in the States, just for this time. So, yeah.
Yeah. And, that caused us to kind of look back in retrospect over a lot of the events that have kind of happened in our lives. And so, we wrote something up about that, and we don't want to take up all the time to kind of go over what God has been showing us, but we'll post that here for anybody who wants to kind of see the bigger story and think a little bit more about spiritual warfare.
Yeah. So we do actually just want to make sure that we say thank you so much to all of you who have been praying. We've said even when Denton was going through all of his physical sicknesses and stuff, that we know that, physical things we could get over, but it was her heart and her spiritual things that just were so trying for us, and so just brought, I don't know, so much discouragement, I guess, to us these past 2 years. And so we just really appreciate all of you who have faithfully been praying for us and for Elon especially. Don't stop. I mean, because we know that this is something that we need to continue fighting. So, thanks.
So kind of shifting gears, we want to talk a little bit about Pancake Day, our Lent activity that we did last week, which was a lot of fun. We had about 75 people come out to the event from the community. Maybe a quarter were church members, and the rest were our friends from the kindergarten, other acquaintances and things, and then people from the church that the church invited. And so most of the people were outsiders, Lent is kind of a big thing around here. They call it post, which just means the fasting. And so they kind of do the ritualistic fasting and things if you're older, but most people just kind of think it's a stupid ritual. So for us to kind of have a community thing that was fun and exciting, and got to eat pancakes and just hang out with people and get to meet real Christians who practice Christianity. And you can have fun and aren't stoic, other than maybe me. It's a lot of fun for people. And one guy even asked you, he said, he's like, do you guys act, what did he say?
Yeah, there's this one guy who came up and said, so like, you have church people who actually like do the things that y'all talk about? And I said, yeah, that's the point. I said, that's our goal, is that we try to live out a life that honors Christ. And he was like, because that's not really something that we do in Romania. I just thought it was totally exactly what we've heard about different people, especially in the Orthodox Church, that it's something that you just say that you're a part of, and you may keep some of the traditions, but it's not something that actually pervades your life.
Yeah. Yeah, and so at the event, it was fun, and one of our main goals was just to create community and kind of get the church visible in the community. And so when we do future events, people kind of know where we're at, and it's easier to invite them in. But we did also have a place where we modeled some Lent activities. So one of the things that Catalina does, we did it last year, was we created this paper chain, and it's got different Bible verses or different activities, like today pray for somebody. Today pray for one of your enemies or somebody that you don't like. And so you make this paper chain of 40 chains, 40 links, and then each day you tear one off and you tape it on the wall, and over the 40 days you create the shape of a cross. And so the kids and families some of them were making that, and we were able to talk to them about that while they were there. In my mind, I'm kind of cynical, and I was like, well, people are just coming for the pancakes, and it's nice that we're trying to get people to do this kind of stuff, but nobody's really going to take it to heart. But I don't know if you thought that too. Should I not say that?
Yeah.
So anyway, a couple days later, I had a conversation with one of the people who was there, and he's like, yeah, so our family was doing this paper chain, and we got, my son was in a fight the other day because this kid just kept picking on him and picking on him. And we got to the one on the paper chain that said, pray for your enemies. Mm-hmm. And my kid said, why should I pray for my enemies? And he's like, so why should we pray for our enemies? So I was like, well, we talked about that and talked about Matthew 5 in particular, and we were able to talk about Jesus and how he died for his enemies, and how we were his enemies if we're not in him. And so we had a good conversation about that, which is sadly, I think most Christians that I know would probably have to ask the same question: well, why should we do that? Because we don't pray for our enemies. So it was convicting to me, but to make sure that I live like Jesus taught. And because it's those hard things that are really the points where people find Jesus most fascinating, because it's easy to do a lot of the things that Jesus said, but to really take Jesus seriously and be a consistent Christian. Like the guy asked Catalina, do you guys live this stuff out? Mm-hmm. Most Romanians live out 70% of what Jesus said, but it's that 30% that really makes us different. And it's a good conversation point. And the other thing that he asked me was, I guess as he was going through some of the passages called Jesus, the Son of Man. And so we had
which also means that he's reading the Bible with his family.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. Awesome.
So we had a good conversation on the Son of Man, and how that comes from Daniel, and how Son of Man is actually more messianic and more divine of a title than Son of God in a lot of ways. There's a great Bible Project video, if you've ever seen them, that I was able to share with him. So I mean, that we talked about the divinity of Jesus and the particularity of Jesus and his unique teachings, and it was good, and I think he's drawn closer. God is drawing him closer to himself, but it's still a heart issue, and intellectual assent and thinking that Jesus is a pretty awesome guy is different than confessing him as Lord. So we're continuing to pray for him, and for all the people who I was cynical about taking those paper chains and taking things to heart. We know that it's not our event, it's not our church's event, it's not anything that we say or do in particular that is going to be the thing that saves people. It's going to be God and his Spirit. So be optimistic about that.
So looking ahead, and again, giving up to some of our plans coming up and what God can do with those, is we are planning a couple of events before Easter. Easter here is a very big deal because of the Orthodox tradition, and yet most people don't really know at all. They could probably tell you that Jesus rose from the dead, but other than that, like, there's really no understanding of what really that means. And so in addition to the Lent activity that we've been doing, we are going to have a Walk Through Holy Week event the Saturday before Palm Sunday. Something as an interesting side note, the Orthodox Church calendar is this year a week different than the Catholic and Protestant Church calendar. So when y'all are celebrating Easter, we will be celebrating Palm Sunday. So anyway, we're going to do an activity, or sort of set up like a museum where people can come in and set up in different stations around our church. We'll have passages from the Bible, and we'll have activities that you can do to really make the stories of Holy Week kind of come alive. So actually practicing washing your feet, what that might have been like. We have one where you'll actually be able to nail or use a hammer and nail something into the cross, so you can kind of think and feel and hear what it might have sounded like. we have a crown of thorns that we made from some rose bushes, which of course are not the same as the crown that Jesus wore, as far as how hard they are, but just some more tactile and kinesthetic things that people can do to hopefully set their hearts and minds on making the events of Holy Week come alive for them in order to prepare their hearts for Easter. This is something that we've done with our own children for the past 2 years, where we would, each day of Holy Week, we would try to take a different event and read it from the Bible and act these things out and kind of make it fun and come alive for our kids. And so that's what we're planning on doing for the community. And then, of course, we actually are talking about having a Good Friday service. And then, of course, we'll have Easter. And Easter, they always do a big lunch, like a potluck lunch, after church on Easter Sunday. And so we would love for y'all to be praying for these events, that since so many people already came to the pancake supper, that maybe those people will be inclined to come back and join us for Easter and some of these different events. And obviously everything that we do is to proclaim Christ and to grow the church. And so that is our prayer, that these events might help do those things. So we really appreciate your prayers about that.
Yeah, and just in closing, before we take any questions, if anybody has any, just continue to pray for our church, for the unity. There are just some very, very difficult things going on, particularly with individuals in leadership, and when you have very difficult circumstances going on in your life, it's difficult to, number one, just keep participating in the church, and number two, to have a good attitude and maintain good relationships. So, and in a small church, I think in some ways that's even harder because everybody's so close and up in everybody else's business. So if you could just pray for that unity, and pray that even in difficulty, God would guide us towards growth, both in terms of personal spiritual growth for the individuals in the church, but also numerical growth as we try to through God's Spirit go out into the community and bring people on.
So we were really trying to keep this one short. We can go long into the other one, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up and hop off of here. But if you have any questions, please feel free to send us messages or ask on our Brighter Media wall, and we would be happy to answer them or do another live conversation with you or something like that. But we really appreciate all of your support, for y'all being here and checking us out. We're going to link some of the other things that we've talked about that you can look at if you'd like to. And yeah, let us know if y'all have any questions. Thank you so much. We appreciate y'all, and we just are excited to be able to praise God with you about all the things that He's doing. So thanks. Y'all have a great day.